The milk steamer hissed like a small, agreeable dragon as Alba tilted the pitcher and watched the cream abloom. She liked this part. The narrow focus, the exactness of wrist and temperature, the way a latte could be coaxed into a heart, a leaf, a swan if the morning and her patience cooperated. I hope you're going to enjoy this story, and if you do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. It was still early, the hour when regulars were soft-spoken, and the bell over the door felt louder than it should. Alba had the opening shift most days at the café on the corner, white tile, fern in the window, chalkboard menu smudged by too many damp fingers. She wore the same black t-shirt with the sleeves rolled to show the tattooed lace that netted her forearms. Swallows, a compass, a thin line script from a poem only her best friend could quote back to her. Her hair was cropped short and pushed forward with careless confidence, and she moved in tidy lines that made the other baristas relax when she was on the clock. People said she was boyish, which always made her smirk. She'd learned to translate it as, "I can count on you." The bell chimed, and Alba glanced up, the practiced, polite smile already on her face. The woman who walked in didn't belong to the hour. She had a late afternoon presence at 8:30 in the morning, pale dress skimming the knee, a cardigan thrown around her shoulders like an afterthought, sunglasses she removed as if remembering where she was. Feminine in the unhurried way some women are, like they've learned to give gravity to small movements. She tucked a lock of caramel hair behind her ear, and Alba's smile dissolved into something else. It wasn't immediate. Alba froze for half a second, milk pitcher still in her hand. She knew that face, not from passing on the street, not from some random ad. She'd seen that face dozens of times in videos she'd replayed on long, restless nights. The same full mouth, the same deliberate way she looked at whoever she was touching, like she was letting them in on a secret. Alexis. No stage name needed. She was one of Alba's favorites, the one she'd search for when she wanted something that worked every time. Alba had never expected to match the woman who'd made her bite her lip and arch into her own hand with someone who now stood 10 feet away, flesh and blood, about to order a coffee. Alexis. Alba blinked, and the name thudded quietly through her. Alexis, whose videos had been wrapped up in the private rituals of Alba's lonelier nights. Alexis, whose voice she'd learned by accident, then on purpose. Alba had found her in a rabbit hole of recommendations and stayed. Not just for the body, because that would have been too cheap a story, but for the warmth that came through the screen. Alexis looked like she cared about the person she touched, and that had been enough to make Alba cue and re-cue those scenes on evenings when the city felt like static and she wanted something steady to lean toward. She had never told anyone that. She hadn't needed to. It was a small and harmless secret. It had kept her company. Hi, the woman said, stepping up to the counter. What do you recommend if I'm trying to be good but still want sugar? Her voice did the rest. Alexis, definitely. Alba's mouth moved before the rest of her caught up. If you're trying to be good, our banana bread is technically a fruit, she said, deadpan. And I can do a flat white with oat milk. It won't ruin your life. A soft laugh lifted the corners of Alexis's mouth. Sold on the flat white, she said. And half a slice of banana bread, if you're willing to commit a moral compromise with me. I love compromise, Alba said, punching it in. Name for the cup? There was a tiny pause. Alba watched it land, that crossroad where famous people had to decide how they wanted to be spoken to. The woman's eyes flicked up and met hers. Lex? She said finally. Just Lex. Lex it is. Alba wrote it with her smallest, most careful handwriting, though her heart had gone a little off meter. She did not look back again as she worked the shots and breathed steam hot across her knuckles. She didn't need to. She could feel the attention at the periphery of the counter, like heat from the oven. When she handed the cup across, she added a quick, neat heart in the foam, muscle memory, and a risk. Lex looked at it, then at Alba, then took a measured sip. It's very good, she said. Thank you. Pleasure, Alba said. Lex left with a half smile and a paper bag. The bell over the door sang her out into the morning, and for the next 2 hours, Alba pulled shots and wiped counters and told herself to stop replaying what had just happened as if it were a scene and she could rewind it to find a different angle. She told herself she had maintained equilibrium. She did not, under any circumstances, tell herself she had just made coffee for the woman she'd once queued up on a screen while her bedroom was lit only by her phone. She did not, under any circumstances, picture that patient mouth around a coffee cup. By the 4th day in a row, there was a pattern. Lex at 8:37, sunglasses perched on her head, sometimes with a tote bag, sometimes with only her phone. She tried different things. A cappuccino. More foam than sense, Alba warned dryly. A cortado. Now we're talking. A tea. We will forgive you this once. She sat in the corner near the plant and worked on a small laptop, leaving every 3rd or 4th visit with a second drink to go, as if there were another person she might be bringing it to. Alba did not ask. On the 5th morning, the shop wasn't busy. Alba was restocking lids when Lex approached, holding her empty cup like a question. Do you ever put the little leaves on purpose? Lex asked, the hint of a grin betraying that she already knew the answer. Only for people who tip, Alba said. Or for the ones who look like they might sue us if they don't get latte art. Good to know, Lex said. Her gaze was easy, direct without being invasive. You run the place? I run the coffee machine, Alba said. The place runs me. Fair? Lex looked like she might leave, then didn't. It must be nice, making something that instantly makes people feel better. It's coffee, Alba said. It's not chemo. Still, Lex said lightly. There were a dozen practiced replies sitting on Alba's tongue. She shelved all of them and set the lids aside. What do you do? She asked, though the inside of her body already knew. Lex's mouth tilted. I used to be in film, she said, vague with intent. Now I'm trying to figure out what comes after that. Alba nodded like it was generic. Director? Not exactly. A small pause. I was on camera. The air seemed to sharpen and simplify between them. Alba kept her face still so she could watch the smallest things. How Lex's shoulders retracted a millimeter, how her hand tightened around the paper cup. Alba recognized self-protection when she saw it. She also recognized the impulse to walk away from it. Ah, Alba said, then thank you for your service. Lex huffed an unexpected laugh, the sound of something uncoiling. You're not going to ask me to say the name of something, are you? She said wry. No, Alba said. I'm going to pretend I'm a civilized person. Besides, I don't ask celebrities for lines while I'm at work. There, a flicker across Lex's eyes that said, you know, without the ugliness that usually followed. I left, Lex said abruptly, throat working. The industry. I left. She smoothed her palm along the seam of the cup. It was getting complicated, not the work, the world around it. People wanted me to be the kind of person they imagined I had to be to do it. Dating was... She exhaled. Almost a laugh. Almost not. Imagine trying to be a person when you were also a trivia answer. Alba listened the way she steamed milk, with attention, finding the line between too hot and not hot enough. Most people treat baristas like vending machines, so I can only imagine, she said. But can I say something? If it isn't I've seen all your scenes, then please do. Alba's mouth did the brave thing before her brain had time to talk her out of it. You were very good at what you did, she said, level. And I mean that in the way I say my baker is very good at sourdough. It's a craft. You looked like you cared. She swallowed. And some of us noticed. Color rose in Lex's cheeks so quickly that Alba wanted to pocket the moment and keep it. Thank you, Lex said softly. The words weren't casual. I think I needed to hear that more than I knew. I'm direct, Alba said, shrugging one shoulder. It's a problem. I don't think it's a problem, Lex said. They stood like that for some time, long enough that Alba could feel her own confidence stretch itself awake inside her chest, cat-like and satisfied. She'd always been better at being brave for other people. It was weirdly easy to be brave for herself right now. Listen, Alba said, reaching for a cup even though there was no reason to. If you want to try the off-menu stuff, you should come back after my break. I can make you something that doesn't exist on chalkboards. Is this a coffee proposition? Lex asked, eyes sparking. Alba felt the grin start before she could edit it. Yes. The bell chimed. 2 office guys shuffled in, reading their phones. Alba stepped back into her role, quick and sure. Lex took a step toward the corner table and then pivoted back. Tonight? Lex said, as if she were surprising herself. If you meant it, there's a tapas place on Calle del Pez that I like. 8? Alba wiped her palms on a towel, suddenly aware of the fine tremor that arrived after adrenaline. I meant it, she said. 8 is good. Okay, Lex said. The word hung between them like foam that refused to break. She slid a small card across the counter. No name, just a clean phone number. Text me, so I know it's you. It'll be me, Alba said, tucking the card into the pocket over her heartbeat. I don't give latte art to just anyone. Lex's laugh followed her back to her table, softer this time, as if they had built a small, private room inside the public one and were figuring out how to leave the door ajar. The day went on. Alba made 3 dozen coffees and broke 1 saucer. She ignored a coworker's knowing eyebrows and the way the world seemed lighter at the edges. On her break, she stood in the alley with a bottle of water and thought about honesty, about the nights she'd pressed play and let Alexis's steady voice anchor her, about how easy it would be to pretend she hadn't done that. She decided not to pretend. If she was going to be brave, it should be useful. Closing came with its familiar rituals: bleach water in the buckets, chairs turned on tables, the register counted twice. Alba's phone was a comforting weight against her thigh. The card felt like a ridiculous, thrilling secret. When she finally leaned against the counter and typed, the message came out simple. This is Alba, from the café. 8 is good. I'll be the one with the tattoos and the dangerous opinions about foam. The reply arrived before she could scold herself for the line. Perfect. I'll be the one pretending not to notice you've already made me nervous. Alba closed her eyes and let herself feel it, the way a good song takes the air out of the room and gives it back in a different key. She walked home through warm streets, the night market rattling itself awake on a side square, a boy practicing kickflips under a street lamp. Later, in the quiet of her apartment, she paused on the threshold of an old habit. It would be easy, she knew, so easy to open her phone and scroll back to that familiar channel, to borrow the safety she used to find there. She didn't. She set the phone face down and watched her own reflection in the dark window. Hair mussed, tattoos half-shadowed. She grinned at herself, small and surprised, and it felt like finding a light switch in a room she'd only ever entered from memory. Tonight, at 8 o'clock, she'd be sitting across from a beautiful woman who had walked out of a screen and into her morning. And tonight she would find out whether bravery could be a habit instead of a stunt. She turned off the kitchen light, and the city hummed around her like a machine she finally knew how to operate. Alba arrived at Calle del Pez 10 minutes early. She didn't usually get nervous before dates, but then again, she didn't usually have dates with someone whose face she'd memorized in a completely different context. The restaurant was one of those warm, narrow places that smelled like sizzling garlic and sweet paprika before you even opened the door. Yellow light spilled out onto the sidewalk in a soft rectangle, catching in the steam of passing traffic. Inside, the walls were lined with framed flamenco posters and crooked shelves of wine bottles, and from where Alba stood, she could see the open kitchen and the chef's back, moving with slow authority. She was halfway through counting the tiles on the building across the street when she saw her. Alexis approached with a confidence that didn't seem rehearsed. She wore a silk camisole under a loose beige blazer, jeans that skimmed her hips, and small gold hoops that caught the streetlight when she smiled. Alba could see already that it wasn't a glam for the camera smile. It was smaller, quieter, like Lex was letting her in on something private. Hey, Lex said, as if she'd been meeting Alba here every Thursday for years. Hey yourself, Alba replied. You clean up, okay? Lex's mouth tilted in mock offense. And here I was thinking I'd impress you. Oh, you did, Alba said, just making sure you work for it. They slipped inside. The host led them to a small table tucked near the back. close enough to the kitchen that Alba could hear the scrape of the spatula and the occasional burst of rapid Spanish from the chef. The tabletop was bare wood, the candle stub in the middle barely taller than its holder. Lex took the seat against the wall, blazer falling open as she crossed her legs. "Do you want me to order?" she asked. "Or do you not trust me yet?" "I don't trust anyone with my coffee order," Alba said. "But tapas? I can take a leap of faith." Lex did the ordering, her voice low and easy as she spoke to the waiter. When he left, she folded her hands and looked at Alba in a way that was more deliberate than casual. "So," she said, "are we pretending we don't know who I am? Or are we skipping to the part where you already do?" Alba held her gaze. "I know," she said plainly. "And I'm not pretending." Lex's shoulders softened. "How?" "You mean, how do I know?" Lex nodded. Alba leaned forward on her forearms. "Because I've watched you," she said, unflinching. Not in some creepy memorize your address way. Just, you were on my screen, more than once. And I noticed you weren't just doing a job. You looked like you actually liked people. Like you liked making them feel good." Lex blinked as if bracing for a punch that never came. "That's not what most people say when they recognize me." "What do they say?" Lex smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Usually something along the lines of, 'Oh my God, you're that girl who,' followed by a very specific description of a scene, or they ask if I'm still doing it, or they ask for a picture." "I'm not going to do any of that," Alba said, "because I'm more interested in who you are when the camera's not there." Lex studied her for a beat, then let out a quiet laugh. "You're dangerous, you know that?" "So I've been told." Their food arrived, small plates of garlic shrimp, blistered peppers. Alba poured them both glasses of sangria, the citrus floating like stained glass in the red wine. As they ate, Lex started talking, not in the rehearsed, guarded way Alba expected, but in a slow, spilling out kind of way, about the first shoot she'd ever done, how she'd been terrified until she realized she could set her own boundaries. About the money being good, sure, but the relationships being non-existent. About friends who stopped calling, partners who couldn't handle it, but were fine with watching porn themselves. "It was like no one could see me without the work attached," Lex said, leaning back in her chair. "And at some point, I started wondering if I'd ever meet someone who could." "You have now," Alba said simply. Lex's expression faltered. Not because she didn't believe it, but because she looked like she wanted to. They finished the plates and lingered over a glass of wine. "So," Lex said finally, "do we do the polite thing and end the night here? Or do we admit we're both wondering the same thing?" Alba tilted her head. "And what's that?" Lex's mouth curved slowly. "What it would be like if you were the one touching me, without a director telling me where to look." Alba's pulse ticked up, but her voice stayed steady. "We could find out." Lex didn't break eye contact. "I live 5 blocks from here." The decision didn't feel rushed. It felt inevitable. They settled the bill, and when Lex reached for her bag, Alba caught her wrist lightly, the way you do when you're not ready to stop touching someone. Outside, the night air was cooler, scented with rain on pavement. Lex walked close, her hand brushing Alba's every few steps. By the time they reached her building, narrow brick with wrought iron balconies, Alba's anticipation was a live wire. Inside, the apartment was warm, the light low and golden. Plants trailed from shelves. There was a faint scent of vanilla and something floral. Alba noticed the small differences from the image she'd had in her head. A throw blanket crumpled on the couch, an open book on the coffee table. A real life. Lex slipped off her blazer and set it over a chair. "So," she said, turning back to Alba, "do you want wine or—" Alba stepped forward, closing the gap. "I think we've had enough wine." Lex closed the gap without hesitation, her mouth finding Alba's like they'd both been holding back for too long. Alba's hands were on her waist instantly, pulling her in until there was nothing between them but heat. Lex kissed like she meant it. No slow let-in, no pretending to take her time. And Alba met her with the same hunger, deepening it until breathing became optional. This wasn't for a camera or for anyone else's eyes. It was just them, finally doing exactly what they wanted. By the time they reached the bedroom, Alba was certain of two things: that she had never been this turned on by the reality of someone she'd first met on a screen, and that this was only the beginning. The bedroom was dim, lit by the glow of a small lamp on the nightstand. Alba took a second to just look at her. Lex standing barefoot at the edge of the bed, hair loose now, camisole strap sliding slightly down one shoulder. The air between them felt thick, like every breath carried the weight of possibility. Alba wasn't used to being nervous, but she felt it now. Not the bad kind, more like the alert hum before a race starts. This wasn't a stranger she'd met on an app. This was someone whose body she'd seen before in detail. But never like this, never unscripted. Lex stepped closer, running a finger along the ink on Alba's forearm. "These are even better up close," she whispered. "You're better up close," Alba said, her voice low. The first time they touched without the barrier of clothing, it was slow. Almost too slow. Like they were both aware of exactly how different this was from anything Lex had done in front of a lens. Alba traced her fingertips down Lex's spine, feeling the subtle shiver under her skin, and Lex pressed her mouth to Alba's collarbone in a way that felt personal. They moved together like they were learning a language only the two of them spoke. There was no pretending, no cheating toward an angle, no exaggerated sound meant for anyone else's ears. Just the sound of breathing, the hitch when Alba's hand found the right place, the quiet laugh when Lex pulled her closer by the waistband of her jeans. When it was over, Lex lay on her side, hair spilling across the pillow, tracing lazy shapes on Alba's chest. "You know," she said softly, "I didn't think I'd ever do this again. Not in real life. Not without thinking about everything else that comes with me." Alba brushed a curl from her face. "This isn't everything else. This is just you and me, and I like this version a lot." Lex smiled faintly. "I like this version too." The weeks that followed blurred in a way that made time feel elastic. Alba would see Lex in the cafe some mornings, though now they'd exchange a quick smile that meant last night before Lex took her usual seat. They went out for dinners, wandered the park on lazy Sundays, and spent enough nights together that Alba started keeping an extra toothbrush in her bathroom. One evening, sitting cross-legged on Lex's couch, Lex let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it for days. "I've been thinking," she said, picking at the edge of the throw pillow. "I left the industry because I couldn't find anyone who understood it. But you don't just understand it, you don't judge it." "I'm not about to start," Alba said. "What if," Lex said slowly, "we did it together? Not the industry as it is, but something new. Something where we decide everything, no strangers telling us how it has to look. Just us. If people want to watch, fine. If not, it's still ours." Alba tilted her head. "You mean start a channel? Like our channel?" Lex nodded, a small spark in her eyes. "We could make it what we want. Real, no pretending." Alba grinned. "You're talking to a woman who once rebuilt a busted espresso machine in her kitchen just because she wanted to know how it worked." "I'm in." They spent the next few weeks planning, not just the content, but the boundaries, the lighting, the mood they wanted to create. Alba bought a camera. Lex showed her how to set up a shot that felt intimate without losing quality. They laughed a lot, argued a little, and tested the settings more than once, in ways that didn't make it into the final cut. Their first upload wasn't polished. It didn't need to be. It was them, touching, talking, laughing between kisses. And it looked nothing like the kind of scene that had made Alexis famous years ago. The comments came quickly, surprising them both. People calling it refreshing, real. The first time I believed what I was watching. Within a month, they had thousands of subscribers. By 3 months, the income was more than either of them made at their day jobs. One night, after filming, they collapsed together on the couch, the city glowing through the window behind them. Lex rested her head on Alba's shoulder. "I think I'm happy," Lex said, almost surprised. "Like, actually happy." Alba kissed the top of her head. "Good, because I am too. And for the record," she tilted Lex's chin up, "I was right the first time. You are better up close." Lex's laugh was quiet, but it lingered, curling into the warm space between them. They didn't need a script anymore. They had the real thing and now everyone could see it.